Hello YouTube, it's Willow here, and I thought it might be a little bit fun if I took you on a little tour of my Plutonic punk garden. And I call myself a Plutonic punk gardener because basically my philosophy is just do it however it feels natural and right and intuitive to do. So you don't have to necessarily follow any rules to garden, just the basics. And you can just honestly dig up a little garden spot wherever you can get one. When I was living in Saskatchewan recently, I had a garden. I had two separate gardens actually on road allowance, so which is basically just a little spot along a prairie trail that was dug up by my dear father with his tractor and disker. But you can also, if you don't have access to a tractor and disker, and really how many people do these days have access to a disker and a tractor and also a farmer or rancher to do it, you can literally just dig up grass, dig up sod, and make a little spot for yourself. And that's exactly what I did this year. I've recently moved to a new province. Last year, actually, I moved to a new province, and I didn't have a garden last year, missed it horribly. So this year I was, pretty much hell-bent on getting some garden space. And luckily, my landlord turned out to be very happy to help me in that endeavor. So I'm just going to show you a little bit about, or I'm just going to show you a little tour of my little do-it-yourself Plutonic punk garden. Okay, so this is the first project that we did, my landlord and I did, was this little 4x8 bed. It's built like a log cabin style, as you can see, hopefully. And basically it's just these spikes put through pieces of wood. This is 3 weeks in, so I planted 3 weeks ago, and you can see these are some little spinach plants that have come up. These are some bok choy. Bok choy came up really well. I already had to actually thin these guys out, so that's really, really good. Then the next layer, the next row, you can't see them actually super well, probably, but they are Swiss chard, rhubarb chard, so it's red. They're gonna have red stalks. There's a full row of that. And then we have these little guys. I'm gonna zoom in on these bad boys because they are so lovely. I'm so technologically ill-equipped here that I don't know if I am even in focus. I'm hoping this is gonna be even remotely viewable by people. But yeah, got a whole little row of onions going on there, and then beside the onions is going to be lettuce. There's 3 little lettuce guys that have come up so far that you can probably see, but I had to replant because the rest of them decided not to come up, and that sometimes happens. Sometimes you have a crazy row that comes up like these bok choy. Like I said, I've already thinned these guys pretty dramatically, so there were some fairly huge there was a fairly huge amount of bok choy that came up, and then others will come up very sparsely, like these little dudes. They've just come up very spottily. This is my second little endeavor that I did, and as you can see, it is just a little scrap of land, scrap of area right alongside a hedge, in between a walkway, a gravel walkway, and a hedge. And basically I just spaded up the grass and aerated it, dug down as far as I could go. It's quite rocky down there actually. And I went all along this hedge here. So I've got this other little bed, and I'll just do a little tour. We've got some cucumbers coming up here, one layer back there, one layer here. I'll probably have to thin a couple of these plants because they're a little thick, but that's good. Then beside these we have some zucchinis. And sorry about my camera work, it's really terrible, I realize. I don't have an iPod Touch or anything like kind of easy, or a cell phone, so I'm using my big Canon camera, and it's not the most user-friendly. But we've got quite a bit of zucchini, and these guys are actually getting nicely big, like you can see. They're starting to branch out a little bit here. So got those guys, and then beside them we have some bok choy, and this bok choy, weirdly enough, didn't come up thick at all. I barely had enough plants come up. You can see that's a little bok choy plant right there. So I had to transplant a couple, and I hope that they survive. But yeah, they didn't come up at all. I've got a little bit of cinnamon around them because, which one is it? I think it's this guy. This guy started getting bug eaten. So I was using cinnamon as a cat deterrent, and then I thought, well, it'll also deter other bugs. Then I have some lettuce, 2 rows of lettuce, so 2 different varieties of lettuce are planted here. Oh, and sorry, I also have a row of, oh my gosh, my camera work is terrible, I'm so sorry. A row of onions in there, if you can see. Little onions, more onions all along the edge there, which is good. So this is about, I'd say maybe 1.5 foot to 2 feet. At different areas, different spots, it's wider. So basically 1 to 2 rows, depending how big they're gonna grow. The zucchinis branch out to the extreme, so I didn't do 2 rows of those, that would be silly. Then I transplanted, because I planted some thyme. This is supposed to be my herb garden area here. And unfortunately, hardly any of the plants have come up. There's a few little basils. Thyme and oregano seeds are almost like dust, and so I might have planted them. Too shallow. I might have planted them a little too deep. It's hard to say, or the conditions just weren't right for them somehow. So I replanted basil, and you can see I've got a few little basil plants coming up here. They're just teeny weeny little guys. And then also there's the thyme that I actually have another plot at the community garden. I was only able to secure 1 community garden plot, so it's lucky that I was able to make this other garden at my apartment. And they had some thyme plants that were donated, so I was able to ask if I could have one of those, and they generously allowed me to take one. And then we have, there's 2 more little basil dudes. Hello, little dudes. And then there's 1 little guy here. I hope you can see him. But I don't even know if this is focusing. Oh my goodness. But anyway, he's looking a little hurt, and he's kind of yellow along the edges there. But yeah, so basically you can see, oh gosh, I just about tripped over the freaking thing. As you can see, it is, yeah, just here I'm gonna back up so you can see the whole idea here. And again, I can't even see because of the sun right now, so I don't even know if I don't know if this is even usable, or if you can see if it's clear at all. So we have the DIY spaded up bed, and then we have the raised bed over here, which is awesome. Yay! Yay for gardening! This is the beautiful town that I'm living in right now, in the West Kootenays, and I am on my way to the community garden. I'm just gonna take you along, bopping along with my on the road. As you can tell, I'm pretty technologically deficient at the moment. I have not entered the cell phone generation, and I know they've made it a heck of a lot easier to take videos than this, which is on my big clunky Canon camera, but you know, good enough. Good enough. Hello dude, how's it going? Hopefully you're not too paranoid being on camera like this. Okay. And now I'm following you with the camera. So anyway, this is on my way to the community garden from where I live. And when I first moved, first moved to this area last year at around this time, so exactly a year ago. And I didn't have, I was, you know, obviously moving. I planted my garden in Saskatchewan, but I wasn't able to, but then I moved, so I wasn't able to sort of harvest it and reap the fruits of my labors. And I can't even see, if this is focused, so if it isn't, my apologies. But anyway, I had a garden for 5 years in Saskatchewan prior to that, and some of them were successful, some of them were not. The last full garden that I had, so the 4th year, was the absolute best. I had so much produce I didn't know what to do with myself, basically. I was giving it away to like half the town. I took lettuce into the old folks' home and fed my parents and fed myself and fed my neighbors and fed my cousin, and it was crazy. It was great. I wasn't expecting that much to actually come up, so suffice it to say, it was a nice surprise. Prior to that, they had been very spotty. The year before that, my garden was actually flooded. The entire town that I lived in basically flooded, 80% of it. And my garden was underwater for multiple days, and it never really recovered after that. It was already not in a great spot because it was in my ex-boyfriend's backyard, and it was very shady back there. It really didn't get much sun at all. So, and this is really depressing, but I'm kind of like out of breath from walking and doing this video. It's like a workout to do this video. So yeah, so that garden was meh anyway. It really didn't get the sunshine that it needed to produce. I got a little bit of stuff out of that garden. Even the year that it flooded, I got a little bit of stuff out of the garden, but not a huge amount. Yeah, so anyway, the 2 years that I had it in my ex-boyfriend's backyard were kind of pitiful years. The flooded year was especially bad. As you can see, hopefully, this is the community garden we're coming up on. And I know this is just absolutely scintillating video, like just on the edge of your seat type of video. Watching me like hopping along. Let's see. So, and the year before that, I had just a tiny little patch on road allowance that my dad had, as I mentioned, dug up with his discer. So that was my first, and that one was really rough. It was just like enough for a few rows, and it was like in the middle of a massive grass, grass patch. It really was very DIY. It was very Plutonic punk gardening, where you just stick it in wherever you can stick it in. But now I have graduated to container gardening, which isn't really done, or sorry, raised bed gardening, I shouldn't say container, raised bed gardenings, which isn't really done hugely in Saskatchewan because for the most part, you know, people have a lot of either backyard or even their own land to garden on. So they don't, raised beds are not hugely done. So when I first came to this garden, I was amazed. Like, look at this, beautiful. It goes way back in there. Look at this beauty. There's just like so much going on here. And I'll take you guys, whoever the 5 people, that's probably generous, who will be watching this video. So this is my community garden bed. And as you can see, oops, just tip forward like that. The onions are the stars of the show so far. They're doing quite well. Beside them, and I'm actually weeding this, so please don't judge. I came here to pull out a few weeds, but you can see we've got a little bit of chard going on here. Chardy McChartertons. And then we have some, beside that we have some broccoli. I'm gonna get rid of this. Get rid of this thing. There's some broccoli. There's another whole row of broccoli here. Or a half row, I should say, sorry. Broccos. Then beside them we have a bunch of kale. Kales. I don't know if this camera automatically focuses or... Anyway, this is probably going to be a nightmarishly bad video, but whatever. It's all about being Plutonic punk, right? Just do it. Just freaking get it out there. And then there's another half row there. And these guys, this is planted really sparsely because this little dude is a cauliflower, and so is this little dude. And this guy's either cabbage or a cauliflower. And then along here are cabbages. And cabbage plants, and then there's one more cabbage plant there. Cabbage plants and cauliflower plants take up a huge amount of space. They're probably not the best for raised bed gardening, but you know, what are you gonna do when you basically just, you know, you're just trying some stuff. So yeah, it's a 4x8 bed as well, and I will show you the rest of the idyllic little garden we've got going on here. This is the rest of the area. There's a garden tool shed over there. There's a lot more garden back here. Try to watch what I'm doing while I'm videoing. And I'm just gonna say that a lot of these plants were planted as bedding plants, so that's why mine are so teeny. They were all planted from seed. And a lot of these guys would be planted from already being a well-established plant. I'm gonna say that anyway, because probably some of these were planted by seed as well. Wow, somebody's whole garden is coming up here. So this is pretty great. humbling moment. Looks like a bunch of potato plants over here. Looking good. So yeah, I've actually come to realize that I'm not a huge community gardener. It's nice to have a community plot, but I am very much kind of like your old school Saskatchewan farmer. Like I don't like having to think about other people's rules or, you know, what I can and can't do in my garden. And you know, other people water the garden here, and I like to be in control of my own spot. But it is nice, I have to say. This is the what they call the common area, but it's mostly just one gentleman who's planting here. I mostly like to, like I said, do my own thing, but it is nice to take part in something like this because you know, it's just another location to garden, and it's more space to garden, and you know, it's a really, really beautiful location, this garden. It's in the park of this town that I'm living in, which will remain nameless. But yeah, the river is basically just down there, and there are, you know, trails. You can probably see the beginning of the trail there. Oh, actually, that is so, there we go. This whole video is probably going to be trash, but what are you going to do? So yeah, it's just a really beautiful location to garden. So I'm getting over my aversion to other humans and humans' rules that have been set up that I may or may not agree with, may or may not want to really deal with. But you know, when you're in a community garden like this, there are certain rules and regulations that you have to follow, and there are other people involved that you have to take into consideration, and you know, there are fees that you have to pay and that kind of thing. So it's just a different style of gardening. And this is some of the splendiferous park that is hooked onto the community garden. So yeah, you know, I can get over my desire to do things my own way, just to be gardening near this gorgeousness. Or I can at least try, right? Basically, you know, there's certain people that are just a little too rough around the edges for kind of mainstream human society, and I'm one of those people, and I've always sort of known that since I was, well, you know, since I was fairly young. And that's okay. You know, that's okay. Okay, so there you have it. You've had the quick little tour of the garden spaces. So I basically have the little area in the community garden that is forcing me to enter human society and play by human society's rules. You know, it's been a challenge, but I think that, you know, I'm starting to get used to it a little bit. And then of course we have the exciting DIY project gardens as well. One of the things I love the most about gardening though is that really you can just jump in and do what seems logical or intuitive to you. I think most people have gardening and growing food running through their blood, running through their roots, and it's a nice way to reconnect, I think, with your roots, with those roots. And as I've written about on the blog before, it's also a bit of a revolutionary act to grow your own food, or to access local food, to you know, buy from local farmers at the farmers market, or from local producers. You know, these days we have there are some concerns with what's in our food at this point, what our food's being produced with, and I think that this is one way to produce a higher quality product that you aren't going to be paying through the teeth for, right? Which unfortunately, the sort of industrial organics at this point are still usually substantially more expensive than the sort of chemical laden and potentially genetically modified versions. So really, you know, even growing a little herb garden or anything, you know, anything that you have control over yourself is really nice. There's no one way to garden. That's another thing that I've learned. Different people have different techniques. and different things work for different people. So you don't have to do it according to anyone else's rules, really. You can learn as you go. There's a huge wealth of information on the internet. So if you get stuck, you can look at YouTube, you can look at people's blogs. There's gardening forums, there are zillions of gardening pages on Facebook or social media, that kind of thing. So, you can just kind of dig in. Gardening in Saskatchewan is a completely different scenario from gardening in the province where I am now, in British Columbia. And basically, you learn as you go. So the way that things were in Saskatchewan, I had a huge amount of space. I was out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody really bothered me. I didn't bother anybody. I didn't have to, worry about space constraints. I didn't have to worry about neighbors. I didn't have to worry about neighbors, animals. There was a sort of, independence, definitely, to doing it that way. Now I'm living in a more civilized area, not as rural. I don't have access to as much space, as much land. So I've gotten into the raised beds and the kind of limited beds, and that has been a fun challenge as well, just to just to be able to plant and to be able to garden within these constraints, learning about cat deterrence, learning about pest deterrence, figuring out what grows well in a smaller space, what grows well in a raised bed as opposed to non-raised, learning about the different ways to thin plants. I just recently realized, you can let your plants grow fairly large and then you can eat the trimmings, and those are called microgreens. There's actually a word for it, microgreens. So I'm actually getting trendy, despite myself. I'm gonna be eating microgreens. Anyway, this is all just a little snapshot into my own little I wouldn't call it a hobby. I would call it a survival-based lifestyle that I think, again, if you have any space that you could use to grow, it's good for the soul, it's good for the pocketbook, and it's good to kind of stick it to the man a little bit, stick it to the man and say, I'm gonna grow my own stuff and make sure that it's high quality, and I'm going to just skip right over the whole corporate food system. It's a good situation. It's a good thing to do. So anyway, I hope that you are all inspired to run out and plant some seeds and grow some plants.